Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of True Gossip, where gossip is true and your opinions matter. Tonight, we have two new guests. Diana George, who's the founder and president of By George HR Solution. She has a wealth of experience landing in HR after many years of management consulting with small business owners. She's a hands-on HR professional that understands that happy employees are productive employees. Our other guest is Celeste Ransom, home health aide, PCA since 1989. She became a CNA in 2000, which she is still passionate about and is risking her life every day to take care of others. We thank you for your dedication and devotion to help others. Our panelist tonight is Tajuddin Shabazz, who brings his wisdom and knowledge, John Kinlaw, our free thinker, myself, Tanya Cole Lennon, your analytical thinker, and of course, my co-host, Ramel Royal, a man with poetic words. And together, we are
First Cousins.
First Cousins.
Well, glad to have everybody on the panel today for this Father's Day edition. So let's just get started. Today's topic is going to focus on COVID-19, the virus that have changed the world. So the first question, and I'm going to start with Diana. How has COVID-19 affected the economy?
Well, I know, and we're all aware of this. We've been in the house for at least 90 days now or more. And for a lot of people, that means not able to go to work. And so the unemployment rate is at a sky high right now in terms of people being able to just have the necessities and basic things that they need. And so overall, it's affected our entire economy and everything that we do. And so this is a new normal. What we did before and what we are doing now is totally different. And I do foresee it being somewhat the same way and constantly changing over the next few months. I mean, we are just starting to dip our toe and coming back. But in terms of what it's done to our economy, we're going to see the effects of that several months out. And we're just into June right now. And so we still have another 6 months into this year. And so in terms of people making it to the other end, it's real important in that they do have some knowledge and understanding how do they do this so that it's not a real devastating thing for them.
Interesting. Celeste, how do you feel about how has COVID-19 affected the economy? What have you seen?
Well, basically the same thing Diane said. You know, people gotta stay in their houses. Some people lost their jobs. Some people jobs closed down. You know, grocery prices went up. Toilet paper went up. You know, eggs went up. I mean, a whole bunch of stuff went up. Like, so it affected us in so many ways. You know, so many ways.
And I can understand.
So that's how I see it.
Tajuddin, with the economy being affected, as Diana and Celeste have mentioned, not only how has it affected the economy, but do you think we can rebound in a short time? Diana mentioned for a couple of months it's going to be out of whack. So what are your thoughts on that?
I look at the negative and positive in every. The negative thing is that the economy has been affected. It's got people really. One thing positive is it's getting people to wash their damn hands and using proper personal hygiene. I think it's also that parents are starting to get reacquainted with their children, you know, and I think we as a people, all of us melanated people, I think we are used to struggle anyway, so it just means we got to tighten up a little bit harder than we have been, stop spending so frivolously and everything. Peace.
Tanya, how has the economy been affected by COVID-19?
I feel I'm gonna piggyback off of Celeste. Celeste was talking about how you know, the groceries are very expensive, toilet paper is expensive. You know, we went shopping the other day and I didn't realize that $100 would not go as far as it did 3 or 4 months ago. We came in maybe with 4 or 5 bags of groceries with $100, and now we came in with 3 bags. Not really, and the prices of everything just went up. But I believe that the economy can bounce back, because I was thinking about how online shopping has went up instead of going down. People were buying groceries online. They was buying their kids' school supplies online. They was buying clothes online. And I believe that it would balance itself out. To go with the small businesses, yeah, there's going to be a loss with them, and they're going to have to try to bounce back with the loans and of that nature. That's how I see it.
Kinlaw is having some difficulties. Yeah, and he couldn't hear. So we're going to move on to the next question. And I'd like to start with Celeste on this. How has COVID-19 affected you and your workplace?
Well, in my workplace, it really hasn't affected me because I still got to go and do my job. You know, I just have to be more mindful now because I take care of elderly people, you know, so when I go to their houses, I just have to be more careful with them because of the COVID-19. And I'm going in and out of other people's houses. So therefore I have to be mindful. I got to make sure I wash my hands, you know, constantly, put my gloves on, you know, wear my mask, you know, because I have to protect them as well as protect myself. So that's how it affected me. But as far as my job, it didn't affect my job because I still work, you know.
You being
And I'm
part of
glad
that
it didn't
essential
affect my
worker.
job because, you know, I love what I do. So I'm just glad that I'm able to help those that can't help themselves.
You know, I work in the car industry, and when the stay-at-home orders came in place, they labeled us as essential work. Now, I didn't understand that, but hey, that's what it was, and we had to work. And it definitely had a profound effect on our workplace. You know, sitting in front of customers, negotiating, talking with customers, talking with sales staff, sitting in little cubicles that are very close quarters. I had to make some sort of adjustment, you know, and God forbid somebody sneezed or coughed, you know, and that was as good as someone passing gas in the room. You know, it was like, that's taboo now, you know, and so it had a profound effect on the workplace. And you know, you mentioned washing your hands and this and that, and you know, you don't know who is taking the same precaution as you are that you come in contact with. You know, you have some individuals that, you know, A, because they're young, they don't think they can catch it, or B, sometimes individuals don't take situations serious until it hits home. And then they start taking some of the necessary precaution that has been mentioned and which they should have been doing all along. So yes, this had a profound effect in my workplace as well. Tajudeen, I'd like to hear from you. How's that?
Yeah. Well, I do bakery and all of this stuff, so I've been moving about cautiously, but I'm not paranoid and putting my products out there. You know, I go out when I have to get supplies and everything. I wear my mask. I wash everything. I wipe everything down once I bring it back in the house. So I'm more cautious, but I'm not paranoid. You know, so that's my
And
story.
Tanya, how has it affected you in the workplace?
Well, I am a recruiter, and with being a recruiter, um, I recruit for janitorial services for federal and state contracts. So with how it affected us, we actually had to hire more people because of the COVID-19. We had to hire more people to do this, to do the deep cleaning, because even though the buildings was closed, they still had people going in and out of those state and federal buildings, still working on different shifts. But so it affected us because we had to hire more people, we had to train more people, and we had to actually buy new equipment. So with that being said, that actually, we had to lay off people that were not essential workers, because janitorial services are essential workers. So we hired more of the essential workers and we laid off more of the, data entry, office workers, people of that nature, because we had to cut corners somewhere, because we had to buy equipment to clean, the buildings, and we had to clean them in a different way now. So it affected us financially, and unfortunately, we had to let go of other people and hire new people. So that's where it affected us.
And Diana, how has it affected you and your workplace?
Sure. So I have my own business, and so I have clients, and so I've watched as has affected my clients. So one of my clients, healthcare industry in the Colorado area, and so they did have to shut down during that time frame, a particular portion, and so we did what we could to keep as many people on as. But then some people we had to furlough and lay off, but we were able, the good thing is we were able to bring them back after about a month and a half. So, you know, in that particular aspect or that particular organization, it changed drastically. Then I have another client who happens to be essential workers. They're a funeral home in Brooklyn, New York, 62 years of legacy, Black owned itself. And so their whole world changed. I mean, like they saw an increase in everything. And so just even modifying how they did business, but they were essential, but they were extremely busy during that time frame, and they've experienced some things that they've never had to see before. So from a personal standpoint myself, I do most of the time traveling to my clients, and so I basically have been, you know, put for a while. And then when I did go out, I was very cautious, even in terms of when I was around people. And when I was in New York, I came back, and a couple of times when I came back into Maryland, I actually saw signs as I was 95, like if you was in New York, you need to self-quarantine for 14 days. And so for me, that's a responsible thing to do. And so that's what I did. I stayed home, you know, once I got back for 14 days, besides going out and getting my groceries and, you know, my gas, because I just think that in a time like this, we have to be responsible in how we're interacting with other people. It's not just for ourselves, but it's for the other people around. And so I've taken those precautions, but I've seen it on both ends. And so to, you know, where you're used to just traveling and getting out and go networking and going to events and just like literally being home every day, you know, you kind of could go crazy. So for me, I had to invest time in my own mental health. And for me, that was walking. And so I started walking 5 miles a day. I get up in the morning, and that's what I do, because I needed that outlet. I needed that time just for myself to have something that, like, it wasn't the same thing, different day type thing.
And we're going to close this segment with Kinlaw. You're going to have to unmute yourself, Kinlaw. But how has COVID-19 affected you and your workplace?
Well, I know in my case, they were cutting back. I've been in the sales environment for quite some time, and I actually was one of the workers that was furloughed due to the effects of COVID-19. So I had to adapt and become more of I guess, thinking more entrepreneurship way of trying to do things to try to adapt with what has happened in our case here. I am what I found out was that I was not an essential worker for a number of reasons. So therefore, it has affected me in quite some way, to which, you know, it made it somewhat more of a challenge to try to go about taking care of things from a routine basis. So I can definitely feel the effects of the people who have to file unemployment and try to find other means of trying to make incomes and make things happen. Fortunately for us, as some of the other people have mentioned on this comment, we do have a other business that we do on our own with our wedding coordinating and wedding catering business on the side. So luckily for us, we've been able to kind of do those things to try to suffice these times. But yes, I think this is something that's going to make people become better in the long term going forward.
Hey, before we move on to the next question, I wanted to ask Kinlaw, and I'll get to you, Tanya.
Thank you.
You mentioned wedding coordinator and planning weddings and something to that effect. Are people planning weddings for this year, or was this for next year?
My wife and I, we've been doing wedding coordinating, wedding directing with our Beyond Decor business for the past 2 years now. This year has been different. We actually just did a wedding this past Friday. It was a little different. It was a little unique. Obviously, it was an outdoor wedding, but we had to make sure that the guests were prepared with masks, social distancing, things of that nature. Can't stop love. That's, you know, so that's lucky for us. But it has allowed us to kind of be more creative in how we do things, how we work things out. And I think it's still something that you can be successful at. So, yes, people are still coordinating weddings. People are still getting married, whether it be discreetly, whether it be publicly, whether it be just something as simple as going to the courthouse and validating through paperwork. So yes, it has been something that's been working out for us, fortunately, in these times of days.
Good, good. Tanya, you wanted to add on before we
Yeah,
move
I did. I wanted to add on what Kinlo was saying about the entrepreneurship, because I didn't lose my job, but what they did was they cut some of our hours back in the beginning. So what I started doing was to try to make up for some of that money that was missing. I started making masks, and I found that making a mask actually was profitable because people really was scared. They wanted, to make sure that them and their family was protected. So I was getting a lot of calls. I was making them, and I'm still doing it now. But I noticed that since the economy has opened up and people have their little stands outside and the little stores are open now, it's slowing down a little bit because they wanted something a little bit more fancy, I guess. But that being said, I was still able to maintain a little bit while I had a few hours. So entrepreneurship is a way to go if you have a skill that you would be able to utilize to make money on.
Well, we're going to move on, and I'm going to start with Celeste on this one. Celeste, tell me, what have you learned from COVID-19? You have to unmute yourself.
What I've learned from COVID-19, well, one thing I learned for sure is that COVID-19 brought a lot of people together from far and near. That's what I learned. And it's a shame that it took COVID-19 for us to come together as people. We should have been doing that a long time ago. And I feel if we would have been doing that a long time ago, maybe things wouldn't be so bad as it is now because of the COVID-19. So in a way, some people would say COVID-19 was a blessing. Some people say it was not. To me, COVID-19 was a blessing in some aspect, because mothers got to be able to be home with their children, especially for the children that needed their parents, because the teachers only can teach them for so much. So some kids come home and their parents is at work and they're not even doing their homework. So now their parents is home, they're making sure they do their homework. And the reason why I'm saying that is because my godson, Jakai, he wasn't doing so good in school because he was a clown in the class. But now that the COVID came, he had no choice but to do better. He brought his grades up. He's on grade level now, so in one hand, it helped us and then it affected us. So that's how I see it.
All right. Tajudeen, what have you learned?
I learned that, again, people need to be more cautious, and again, not being paranoid. Also, it made people that it humbled a lot of people, a lot of proud people. It made us all gather, like Tanya and like with myself. I think everybody, if we had jobs or careers, but it made us pull together our own talents to create what I say is called a legal hustle. And that's how to make a little side cash on the side, to get little things that you want, and you can make up for the amount of time or money that you lost in your profession. So that's one of the things that I learned that, okay, something popped up. But anyway, so I learned again that even during the dark times, my products created a little light in there and a little humor and a little fun in everybody else's lives during this dark time. Peace.
Diana, can you elaborate on what you learned from COVID-19?
Sure. And for me personally, what I've learned and what I've observed is it gave us all an opportunity to just slow down a minute. We get on this hamster wheel of just going every day. And to what Celeste said, you had families that are spending more quality time. Back in the day when I was coming up, you had dinners together. You spent that family time, and that's gone away because everybody is on a schedule. The kids got activities. Parents are working 2 jobs, and so I think it's really given families a time to get back to some type of normalcy and what we grew up with, what I know I grew up with, and had that quality time. And I've heard a lot of people say that even after this is over, they want to keep that intact. and have that there. So just being able to spend that quality time. But I think also what COVID-19 did, it also keeps people thinking. It keeps you on your toes. And so there is a Chinese proverb that talks about from adversity comes opportunity. And so I hear a lot of that as we're talking right now, even in terms of businesses, entrepreneurship, and people coming up with ideas to do certain things because you're being forced to, and you're in a situation like, okay, you have to outcreate what's happening right now. And so when we take a look at it, it did force us all to slow down, take a look. But the one thing that I take a look at, this was not just a US problem. It wasn't just the Italy problem. This was a global problem. So when you start talking globally, then you're talking about mankind. And so it does force people to come together, to come up with a solution and now build those ties that they need, because we're all in the same situation. Everybody around the world was talking the same thing, COVID-19. And so we were all looking to survive this and solution. So it brought us all together in that sense. And so that was definitely a good thing from this.
Kinlaw, I'd like to hear from you. What have you learned from COVID-19? Unmute yourself.
Yeah, I got it. A couple things I learned automatically. I'm not smarter than a third grader. But I did learn how to start Google meetings. And, you know, I definitely, you know, I've been able to manage to take care of the girls and things of that nature. For now, we've been able to share different roles that would be typically done by her in most cases. So I definitely have a much more appreciation of things that are done domestically within the home. But for the most part, going back to the entrepreneurship type approach to things now, the wife and I were discussing other ways outside of the box to make more money, because we don't want to be in a position again to where your employee or your employer can say, hey, listen, we no longer need your services anymore due to whatever government shutdown or whatever the case may be. So I think a lot of people, going back to what the other lady's comment was about slowing things down, thinking of ways where we could be more self-sufficient. I think I'm the one that's probably thinking glass half full about this whole COVID thing. Aside from the illness, I think it gives you a lot of chances to kind of be able to find other ways where you can provide and do for yourself, and be able to set yourself up to where you're not so attached to, hey, if something goes wrong here, what else can I do for going forward? Other skills that people might not know that they had or didn't have, now you're working on those things as well to become more of a hustler, more of an entrepreneur, or anything like that. So definitely just pushing us forward to be more self-sufficient. I think that's what I learned, that people can be more self-sufficient if they took the time to do so.
Tanya?
Well, I learned that people, I hate to say this, but people are selfish. I learned that people in this world is very selfish. You know, I will put on my mask, I will make sure that I'm protecting someone else, but I find that people don't feel the same way about me. And I found that you have to find other ways to make sure that you are safe and that you are safe from COVID, which no one is safe, but you have to do other things to make people aware of what's happening. Because in my workplace, you have a lot of people that might walk around without their mask on and things like that, but it's not I don't think they understand that they're spreading something even if they don't know that they have it. People are naive about that. And I really learned that people are selfish, and that I learned that I have a lot of patience. I learned that I have a lot of skills. I learned that I'm able to do things that was way beyond what I thought I was able to do, you know, when I was just working before COVID came about. But I learned that I can come together and bring people together, like with True Gossip. This is something that I was thinking about 2-3 years ago. I had this name 2-3 years ago, and I wanted to do it. But it was this time that it was, you know, able to come forth. And with my cousin Ramel, we're doing it together, and we actually, this is our 5th show that we're doing, and I'm hoping that we continue to do it. Yes. And to bring information and make people aware of what's happening, and give them a platform where they're able to speak and say things that they would like to say but don't know where to say it at. So I learned that I have a lot of patience, that I have a lot of willpower, and I have a lot of gifts that I didn't know that I had.
Before we move on to the next question, I definitely wanted to add to this question, so I'll close this topic out. And what I've learned from COVID-19 is that the things that we took for granted, we no longer can. This COVID-19 is an invisible threat. I don't think anybody knows actually how it gets passed around. To me, I can't believe that one person was affected and he or she sneezed or coughed on someone, that it affected the whole world, as you mentioned earlier, Diana, globally. I just don't see it coming from just one individual. So
it did not. I'm just going to say that. Keep going.
Right.
It did not. Keep going. I believe
taking things for granted, seeing somebody for the first time in 10 years and giving them that hearty hug, I don't know, I might be so willing to do that anymore. Seeing somebody and just giving a handshake, I don't know if I might just do that anymore. I might be more selective with what I do. Maybe going to certain restaurants, if it raises an eyebrow, maybe I don't go in anymore. It's, to me, the things that we took for granted, okay, it's a B, I'm going inside. Maybe I don't go to a restaurant that's a B anymore. Maybe it's got to be A's and better now. So it's so many things that we took for granted in the past that I'm now going to give second thought to. I mean, everything that you all said, I agree to, but in that aspect, I'm definitely going to give second consideration to some of the things that once upon a time I may have taken for granted before COVID-19. So we're going to move on. I'm going to start with Diana on this one, because what can people do now after a layoff?
That's an excellent question. And so, number one, one of the things I can say that happened with COVID-19 that's not happened before is they did try to put some things in place in terms of what happens to people when they were laid off, because it affected so many people. So being able to file for unemployment right away. I mean, I hope that people took the opportunity that if you did get laid off, file for unemployment right away, and then take advantage of some of the things that they're offering right now, even in terms of small business loans. If you're starting a business, even that is up on the rise right now. But take advantage of the things that's there, and also learning. Even for myself, having my own business, I mean, believe me, during the last 90 days, I've been on, I can't tell you how many different Zoom calls myself, learning new skill sets, continuing to educate myself on certain things. And so, in the beginning, we saw all of TikTok videos, and we saw, people binge watching on Netflix. Okay, you can only do that, but so much. Okay, take this time right now to start educating yourself, because this is going to come through, and we're going to get on the other side. So what did you do to prepare yourself to get on that other side? And so right now, there's 1.5 million jobs that are posted on LinkedIn alone. Okay, that's a lot of jobs, 1.5 million. And so I always look at, like, I think it was Ken Law that said, the glass being half full. Same thing for me. So 1.5 million jobs, I'm thinking one of those got my name on it. And so I would be taking a look at how do I get that next career opportunity. But I think what this has done also is it's had people take a look at what's the right career opportunity for them. A lot of people were in dead-end jobs that they hated every single day when this was going on, and then they found themselves laid off. Well, now is the time not to have to go back to that job that you hated anyway, but figure out how to reposition, regroup yourself to go into that next and new career that you've always wanted. So, be connected with people. I'll talk before we end this. I'm actually having a webinar on July 9th. That really does help people to do that, where, I can give people the link, and if they're interested, they can show up for that.
All right. Tajudeen, your thoughts on that?
Yes. During this time, and even before COVID-19 had started, the event and everything, all of that. But I think now I'm more mentally focused. I'm more spiritually grounded, and physically, I'm probably in the best shape of my life. Because again, when the gyms closed, I didn't have that. So I used my own body weight to work out. I had to make a routine of what I wanted to do to get in. I lost about 25 pounds. That's the physical. I read a lot more. like the sister has said, I slowed down enough. It slowed me down so that I could focus on things that were important to me. So again, my diet, I tightened that up. Because again, I'm not sitting around gaining a bunch of weight, binge watching and eating a bunch of stuff. I tightened up on my diet. I tightened up, like say, working out. I tightened up on reading, and then the spiritual side of me, I tap more into the God within myself.
Celeste, what can people do now after the layoff?
Well, first of all, I agree with Diane have said, and also I say they can go back to school online. To like she said, some people are stuck in jobs that they really don't even want. So now they have an opportunity that they can go back to school online while they're home. I mean, put your mind into good use. Use that. Go back to school. First and foremost, pray and ask God for guidance. And to lead you in the right direction. So because without God, you can't do anything. So that's first and foremost. Just sit and just ask God, which way should I go? Right now, the COVID-19 got me home, and the job that I'm on, we laid off. We can't go back, because I know a lady right now, she's working from home, but she said her job is about to end, and they're not even going back to the facility. She has to look for another job. So while you're home and you're stuck in a house and there's nothing for you to do, go to school online, but pray about it. Ask God to guide you in the right direction and see if that's what you should do.
It's funny, and you can contest to this, Celeste and Tanya. When COVID-19 hit in our family, there was some anxiety and there was some fears. And we got together as a family collectively. And since mid-March, we've had 3 Zoom calls a day where we pray. And we also play, but we pray. And, I've worked throughout this whole ordeal, but for me, how I'm responding to it is that I find myself getting closer and closer to God, and finding myself getting closer and closer to the ministry. So today, I had my first sermon today. And and for me, it's the greatest Father's Day I've ever had, because I was able to do something, explore a territory that I never did before. And the support that I received from our family and friends was so overwhelming that it just made my day. And I could honestly say that something like that I did today probably would have been far delayed if we had not gone through COVID-19. So utilizing the layoff or some extra time to maybe tap into other fields, go to school, maybe watch seminars, webinars, or whatever, and see if maybe there's a calling for you in something else, could be very positive from this. And yes, very useful. Tanya, please add on.
Yeah, I'm with the rest of you guys there, talking about, go back, get educated on something that you might have been thinking about doing before and never had the chance to do it. Tighten up on the skills that you already have. Maybe you can move up in the company, once they start reassigning people, because some people might not be able to come back, because schools, we don't even know when school's going to come open up again. So parents might have to stay home with their kids. They might not be able to send them to daycare or go back to school when September comes. So you could tighten up on skills that you already have, and maybe advance somewhere in the company. Go back to school, get that education. I'm doing that. I'm in the recruiter class right now. I'm getting, my recruiting certificate, because I want to do more. I want to work more in HR. So that's something that I'm doing to advance myself where I am. So I think that after, the layoff, you can go back to school. I mean, if you already went back to school, go out there, reach out for other jobs. Like Diana said, there's 1.5 million jobs on LinkedIn. You can go on LinkedIn. You got Indeed, different places. You got temp agencies, and see who's hiring, because there are jobs out there now. I mean, just got to go out there and put yourself out there. Oh, and tighten up your resume.
Kinlaw, close us out on this. What can people do now after the layoff?
You know, I struggle with this one. That's a question or a discussion that I have maybe once a week. Speaking for myself personally, I am still making babies. I have a 6-month-old and a 9-year-old. But a parent like myself, yes, there are jobs hiring. I've been offered several jobs, right? However, they have to coordinate a certain way in order for things to coexist with the way things are set up now, because not a lot of child care centers are opening back up.
Right.
Not a lot of summer camps are opening back up. As a parent, yes, we are putting ourselves at risk of going out there, exposing ourselves on a day-to-day basis. However, we think very differently when it comes to our kids, especially our baby girl. So are these child cares equipped to notice these different signs and effects that are taking place amongst these kids? Are there certified nurses on board? So, I mean, these are the constant questions that comes along for parents like myself who still have very young kids. Yes, the jobs are hiring. Yes, they are. But then what do you do with the 5, 6, 7-year-old? And then you have your parents that are up in age, 60, 70 plus or so, which they don't want to put their health at risk either. So these are the things that are complicated. I don't think it's just a matter of people not want to go back to work. It's just that everything are not on the same page as of right now, you know, and that could very well go into the fall, where okay, we get through the summer, but then what if school still shut down in the fall? Granted, if you got kids in high school and in college, that's, you know, you can pretty much ease back into life normally. But people like myself, you know, who still got grammar school and childcare, you can't quite move the same way. So therefore, the typical jobs that you would take, which is a normal 8 to 5, or your career jobs that you normally be, will be a set schedule, so forth. Now you're looking at overnight. Now you're somewhat settling, but you still got to make things do, right? By switching it up and things of that nature. So it's a little difficult. And these are the things that I know that I struggle with. I know there are millions of other parents like myself that does the same as well. Who's going to sacrifice their income, their scheduling, their skill set, and take the necessities of working a certain job just so they can keep things going while the other half or so forth, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So it's a little bit difficult for me, but that's a question that's going to be addressed in many different ways.
All right. Understand your point.
Can I just say something about that also? I just would like to add, and Kinlaw brings up an excellent point, but I think what's happening also is people are being redirected and refocusing what's important to them. And to your point, if you have a family and you know you can't, but a lot of jobs during this time, they realize, you know what, we don't have to have everybody in the building to get work done. So there are a lot of jobs right now that they will force to take a look at how do we operate remotely. Now, are all of them going to continue to operate remotely once this is all said and done? No, but as a great majority or more of them going to do so? Absolutely. And so there's going to be still a lot of opportunities to get those decent jobs in terms of not having to leave the house and still be able to do it remotely. And so, like you said, it's going to depend upon what your situation is and what's best for you. And a lot more families are taking a look at that now instead of just making a decision to get a job and go to work. And see, that's when you have a recipe for success. You're taking a look at how does this align with my lifestyle and how does the company align with my, what's important for me. And that's going to be critical going forward for a lot of people.
An excellent point. And we're going to move on to this next question. COVID-19 has flooded the news in recent months, and it's no way around it. But also within the last month, protesting has flooded the news as well. And to me, and the question reads, how has COVID-19 affected protests? I'm just going to say it hasn't, because despite the threat, the invisible threat being out there, protesters are still out there. And I've seen record highs in protesting. We talked about, Diane used the word globally. this is the first time a protest has actually had an effect globally as well. So my question to you all are, and I'll start with Tajudeen, how has COVID-19 affected protesting?
Like I say, I see a lot of, when I look at it, I see a lot of recklessness out there. But again, a lot of people are acting off of emotions and not thinking clearly or strategically. You know, I was talking to some brothers today. I was like, yeah, the means calls for that, you know, with the police brutality. But again, I'm not going to put myself at risk protesting without protecting myself. So again, people need to put some guidance out there on how to successfully protest if you're going to do that, or else do it online. I saw someone had a march or something yesterday and today in this area that they were doing it online. You know, I don't see myself putting myself at risk, my health at risk, because I want to prove a point or to protest. So again, we need to think strategically on how to protest, you know.
Celeste?
Well, I don't personally, me myself, I'm with you, Ramel. I don't think the COVID-19 affected them from protesting. But the only thing that I don't understand is it's one thing to protest, but it's another to act a fool. You know, I'm all with the protests, but I'm not with them acting crazy, because it's not going to get your point across, because they look at us in a different light anyway. So if we're going to protest the right way. Put your mask on. You know, try to, protesting, you can't be 6 feet apart. Okay, I understand that. But don't be all up on top of one another. You know, wear your mask. I've seen them out there, no mask. Even they got their babies out there, no mask on. They all up in each other's face. To me, that's crazy. You know,
I understand.
They need to protect themselves. So protesting is good, but protect yourself, because you have family. So that's how I see protesting. They protesting anyway, whether the COVID-19 is going on or not. But all I say is they need to protect themselves, and they're not doing that. You see very few out there protecting themselves, and it's a shame.
Tanya, I'm gonna go to you, Tanya, because I recall you placing a video on Facebook showing you and your children out there protesting, and it looked like you were very active and engaged in doing so. So what are your thoughts on how COVID-19 affect protests?
Yeah, I don't see that the COVID-19 affected the protests at all. But while I was out there, like Celeste was saying, I was protecting myself. I told my kids to protect themselves, to put on their masks, and to make sure that they're protected. Try to stay away from people if you can. You know, let's find an area where it's not a clutter of people. We can still make our point without being all on top of somebody. But I don't see that the COVID-19 had affected anything. But I just want to go a little bit further. I want to go into last night. I was watching the president's rally last night, and to me, that was reckless. That's something that's just disregard, not just for yourself, but for the world. Because when those people leave and they go their own way, they are probably going to affect thousands of people, you know, not even thinking. Even at the protest, most of the people with the protest I was at, they were wearing masks. They were trying to practice social distancing. We were trying to stay 6 feet apart. And I noticed that in some of the protests, that when people were not practicing the social distancing and wearing the mask is when, like Tajudeen said, their emotions got involved. When everything got heated, that's when people forgot. But when they first started out, they were trying to be the 6 feet apart, put on the mask, try to respect one another's space, whatever. But again, when the emotions comes in, all that other stuff just go out the window, and I don't see where it affected, COVID-19 affected it at all.
Diane, we give you the opportunity to close on this particular question.
Sure. So you know what? For me, COVID-19 did affect the protests, and let me tell you why. If it wasn't for COVID-19, we wouldn't have had as many people out there protesting because they would not have been in their houses being too in touch with the TV to know exactly what was going on. So I think if it was business as usual and we didn't have COVID-19, we would not have had the global, once again, protests that we had, because people were watching this on a regular basis because they had no choice. They were stuck indoors. And I think had it been any other time, we wouldn't have got the exposure. We wouldn't have got so many people to see what was going on and take a stance at that point. And so I think that that was a good thing in a sense, and it did affect it in a positive way. I just don't believe that if COVID-19 didn't happen, we would have had all those people out there protesting.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed 1,000%.
That's an excellent point. Excellent point. So before we close, I want to take this time out not only to thank you all for being on the show, but I'd like to take 2 minutes of your time each just to kind of sum up the show with something maybe you hadn't got a chance to say or something you wanted to say, and maybe something that's not quite related to the questions but relevant today. So we're going to go in the order. We're going to start with Kinlaw, and we're just going to go around from Kinlaw to Celeste, Tajuddin, Diana, and we'll close with Tanya. So Kinlaw, please start us off.
I would say these last several months or so, and obviously up to the most recent events, going back to what Diana had mentioned, this COVID, there's some positives that you can get out this COVID-19 thing. Even though we have a far number of negative things, but there's some positives. One, you can get back to learning about yourself, whether it's building spiritually, whether it's building your business assets, things of that nature. Just becoming more creative in how you want to get more exposure to things that's going to benefit you in the long term. A number of other things that also took place was that what I've learned to understand through all different racial issues and things that we're protesting and stuff like that, there is still a ton of ignorance that is out there. And unfortunately, people are letting it show through social media. I think that we need to take more time to try to introduce yourself to someone completely new, someone completely out your circle, to share some things, because I think that's the main thing that's missing. A lot of things is missing because there's no connection. There's no information being shared. Some people just been staying on one side of the wall and never start to step across it. And I think the only way we can move things forward if we just step across the wall to try to engage with people that we normally wouldn't do so, in order to kind of help bridge the gap in some form of matter, whether it be through law enforcement, whether it be through different genders, whether it be through different active backgrounds and things of that nature. There's a lot of things that we can do differently to try to help build together and press forward and try to minimize the anger and the hate and the pain that's been expressed over these last several weeks.
Excellent, excellent. We're going to go to Celeste. Give us 2 minutes of thought, Celeste.
Well, my thought about the COVID-19, to me, it was a blessing. And I'm going to tell you why. Because it allowed my family to come together on one accord. You know, because we all live in different places. So we don't get to see each other that much, you know, and it's like, you know, you live not so far apart, but far apart. So sometimes you get so consumed in your work that you forget about your loved ones. So because of the COVID-19 and we had to stay in our house and we couldn't go out. So my cousin asked my brother to open up Zoom, you know, to have a prayer line. So to me, this was a blessing because now we got to be able to build our relationship back together like how we was when we were younger. You know, I miss that. You know, I miss going to the barbecues and I miss them coming to my house. I miss babysitting them, you know. So now that we got older, I just enjoy being on the Zoom. So to me, this was a blessing for me because I got to be able to see some of my cousins that I haven't seen in years, you know. So I'm kind of happy for this. You know, it may sound crazy, But I'm really kind of happy that COVID-19 happened because it made families come closer together. You know, some family members that wasn't even talking now. You know, so this was a blessing to me.
Amen. Amen. Tajudeen.
Yeah, I'm gonna go outside the box. I look at this whole thing, as I said, it's a humbling perspective. Um, no Al Qaeda, no ISIS, no terrorist organization shut the government down or shut the world down, but an unseen virus shut it down. And it made people start looking within themselves like, yo, man, I ain't been doing right. Let me get in touch with my positive side. So I look at the positive side that an unseen, a virus shut the whole world down and made them take notice of what they're doing. And if you look, now right behind that is the police brutality coming up. So it's like, to me, I see divine plagues on a lot of people that ain't been living right. So COVID-19 to me is like that mirror to make people start looking at themselves, to make themselves look within themselves. Peace.
Diana.
Yeah, so COVID-19, I do take a look at it as one of those things that's going to go down in history. These are things that, is our children's children are going to be talking about. It's one of those things that's going to be permanently ingrained into our history. And so being able to walk away from this, and I think to what everybody else said, having a better understanding of who I am. And I think just the ability to want to take what I do and help other people. And I saw a lot of other people doing the same thing. It's like looking deep within and saying, how can I help somebody with a skill set that I have? Mm-hmm. And so I see a lot of that happening right now. And so it's bringing people together. My parents are both of them, they're in their 80s. And so I tend to be busy, but you know what? I tell you, I speak more to my parents now. They've learned Zoom, like when you have to teach an 80-year-old person Zoom, let me tell you something, you got to have a whole lot of patience. Because
Understood.
It's not an easy thing, but I mean, everything to like, I had a family member that passed away in the very beginning of this, and it wasn't from COVID, but I was the person that in our family put together the Zoom for the entire family. So they were able to have an entire service through Zoom. And I remember my cousin saying to me in the very beginning, she goes, we feel so alone because it was only the immediate family that was there because nobody else could be there. And once they saw all the people that we had on Zoom, we had like over 70 people. And that was just that had connected. That doesn't include the other people that were sitting there with other ones. And so they really felt like they were connected. And so through this, there's been just the connection and just love and just reaching out and conversations that we probably would have never had with other people.
Understand. Close us out, Tanya, my co-host.
Yep, I'm gonna close you out. And I believe that COVID is a double-edged sword. It's a blessing to some and it's a curse to others. And you get something good out of it and there's something bad came out of it. And I'm gonna leave it at that. And I just wanna say thank you to my guests that came on tonight to share all the information, their concerns, their thoughts, their feelings. This is a platform where your voice matters. We wanna hear you. And I wanna give Diana a chance to tell us about her book and where we can find her on her webinar. And then I'm going to give Celeste a chance to tell us where we can find her so we can become her friend. Go ahead, Diana.
Well, thank you so much, Tanya. I really appreciate you having me on and being able to share. And so my book, I co-authored it with several other women, and it's called Anatomy of Accomplishment. And my chapter, which is a company culture that transforms, I talk about a lot of things that I've been discussing on here. It's about alignment in our lives. And so when you align your career and your job with the company that you're working with and the culture that they have, then you tend to be a happier person at work. And so I'll go ahead and the bit.ly link for that is bit.ly /wow employees. So that's bit.ly /wow WOW employees. And so you can go down, you can get the free download of my chapter. And then for me, being in human resources, it's important for me to take what I know and give that information to other people so that they can do better. And so on July 9th, I will be having a webinar. It's called Career Clarity 101, how to refocus, regroup, and reposition for a rewarding career. And so you can sign up for that, and the link for that is bit.ly/career clarity 101. And so that they can go and they can sign up for that. But I believe in empowering people so that they can do better and whatever it is that they do.
All right, thank you. And Celeste, since you are a CNA, and we know that people are actually scared to even take those jobs now. But if they want to go and become a CNA, how can they do that? Where can they go in North Carolina to go ahead and be like you and help people and be devoted to helping people to have a better quality of life?
Well, they can work as a PCA, and most jobs that hire you as a PCA, they also find classes for you to go so that you become a CNA. So one of the colleges out here, I think is Guilford College, they have the classes for CNA. So people can go there and also go and get their CNA. But the jobs will hire you with just being a PCA.
Okay.
Because some places you can go, you don't have to be a CNA. You know, it all depends on the individual, you know. So they have a lot of cases that they have PCAs. You have to, only certain places you go that you have to be a CNA. Like to certain people's houses, you know, because you have to know more stuff. PCA really just go there basically like a companionship, may do a little cleaning or stuff like that. So they don't have to have a license. But a CNA, you have to, because you have to do other things. You might have to clean their wound, you know, help them with their medication and stuff like that. A PCA can't do that.
All right. All right then. So I want to thank all my guests. I want to thank Kinlaw for always coming on, Tajuddin for always being here, Ramel, he's a great facilitator, and you can find us on YouTube, True Gossip with a capital T, capital G. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram, same spelling, and True Gossip is a platform where your voice can be heard and your opinions matter. We thank you for coming out and enjoying us tonight. Good night, all.
Good night.
Blessings.
Please.
Thank you.